Okay, so today we're framing interior walls. Uh, Actually, today and yesterday I worked a couple hours, and it started raining. And then the day before I worked a couple hours on it. But anyway, so uh, what I do is after I finish all the exterior walls, I snap all the lines for the interior walls. Now, some people do it all from the beginning. You can do it either way, but um, I got all the interior partitions, or all the exterior walls up, and then I started on the interior partitions. I started snapping all the lines on the floor, and I do all the walls. Well, so all the interior wall lines are snapped. I use waterproof chalk line, um, so even after all the rain, the lines are all still there. Even the line here still is there from the rake wall, and that's been through a few rainstorms, and it looks like I just snapped it. So anyway, so the way I do it is I snap the. Some people like to snap. So if it's a 3.5-inch wall, 2x4 wall, they like to snap the lines 3.5 inches apart, right? So they want a double line, so they know right where the 2x4 goes. I don't do that. It's a waste of time to me. So what I do is I just snap one side. So like here, I've snapped one line, and then I take a pencil. As you can see here, it's hard to see because of the shadows, but the camera doesn't pick up the shadows very well. But I put an X. So every couple of feet along, I'll put an X, so I know, okay, this is the line, and the wall sits on that side of the line. And I don't know. To me, it doesn't get confusing when you see a lot of lines on the floor, even if they're small rooms. So here's a line here. There's X's here. This is going to be a closet. This is the hallway to get into these different rooms. But anyway, yeah. So that's how I do it. Also, you can use the wall intersections. Will tell you here. Will tell you where your wall is. But anyway, so that's what I do. I snap a line, one side of the wall. You can do both sides. It just takes more time, and to me, it's not necessary. And then I mark on the floor. So see here with pencil. So after I'm done, I've got the plans in front of me, obviously, when I'm snapping all these lines. So then I'll write where the doorways go, basically where they are. I mean, it's, not exactly, but I'll write, so this is a 2-foot 4-inch by 6-foot 8-inch door, so I know I need to leave a rough opening, so I'll just put 2, 4, 6, 8. Right, so it means 2-foot 4, 6-foot 8. If it was a 2-foot 6-inch door, it'd be 2, 6, 6, 8, like that. 6-foot 8 is the height for. That's the height I use with 9-foot ceilings. If I'm doing 10-foot ceilings, then I use 8-foot doors, so it'd be 2, 4, 8, 0. But these are 9-foot ceilings in here, so and then the doors are much cheaper. 8-foot doors are like double the price for that extra foot. So anyway, so that's how I do it. So so when I'm plating, when I'm cutting my top and bottom plates, I know, and then I do my layout on the plates. I'll know, okay, there's a doorway here. I don't have to have the plans in front of me all the time. So that's how I do that. So I go through, snap all the lines, mark kind of sort of where the doorways go, just put at least a reminder there on the floor, and then I go through, and now this isn't really production because I'm doing this by myself. I mean, obviously, if I was doing this for a living and I was banging out houses, or when I framed, I did commercial. I didn't do residential. There's not that much money in it. There was a lot of money in commercial at the time. Now a lot of it's, this is the 80s and early 90s, and then they were already transitioning. A lot of it's done with metal framing now. But back then there was very little metal framing. It was all wood, so the money wasn't commercial for framers. But anyway, yeah. So then if you're doing production, of course you're gonna do things a little bit differently. But if you're a small crew, if you're doing remodeling, or if you're just plain not in a hurry, this is the way I do it. And then, like for wall intersections, instead of using a full stud, this is a good place to use up blocks, your scrap, and then you save a stud. Now, if you're not paying for the lumber, if you're just framing houses for builders, most likely you're not going to take time to do all that. You're just going to throw a stud in there. You're going to build all your channels. You're going to have your helper building these are called the channels, which we talked about before. It's basically 3 studs. You're not going to be screwing around with all this. But when you're paying for the lumber like I am, these are, this is a spec house. They build spec houses, so it's my money. And I mean, it's a 2x4 is what, 30, it's they're around $4 now, or a little bit less than $4. I think for a 9-footer, or maybe they're $5. Anyway, it saves, and then you don't end up wasting all the scrap. I mean, as you can see here, everything I've built so far. I mean, and I really throw in the only thing I've thrown in a dumpster so far is the 1-inch or 2-inch pieces or 4-inch pieces. So this is basically all the lumber I have left so far. This wall will get burned up easily. So I'm not wasting a lot of lumber. So it's a way to see here, and it works fine, because all you really need when you're intersecting a wall is you need a nailing point at the bottom. You need one nailing point in the center, so your corner's solid. So I poke a couple nails in there, makes your corners solid for your drywallers. And then one contact point at the top. You're not going to use the whole stud. The reason I did on the exterior walls is because at that time I didn't have any scrap yet, basically. I was using all pre-cut studs. There just wasn't enough scrap, so I just ended up using full studs. And I used ones that were really bowed and crooked. And then, so what I did is I take the saw, and it's a 7¼ inch saw, whatever the deepest setting is. I don't know whatever cuts in at its deepest setting, and I run it through, and then you can straighten these out. It's a good way to burn up warped and crooked lumber. So I ended up, I just ended up, because otherwise these studs were too bowed to even use in a wall. I mean, you'd have a big warp in the wall. You would see it after. So it's a good way to burn them up. I mean, you can burn them up and cut them into small pieces too. Also, I've done that on my, let's see, I'm trying to see here. Here, for example. So if I have my 16-footers that I use for plates, what I call my plate stock, which is for everything except your pre-cut studs. So, all your cripples and your corners and anything that needs to be cut comes out of the 16-footers. If I've got really crooked ones, I use them for the bottom plate. And I do the same thing. I put a cut here. This one is really bowed. I put a cut here. I've done it on this one. Cut here, 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 here. Because once you stand the wall up, you're going to make that 2x4 follow the chalk lines. It doesn't matter if it's warped. You just kick it into place. Putting these cuts in, it just makes it a little easier to do that, to force it onto the line. It's a good way to burn up if you got crooked 16-footers, which, it's hard to get straight 16-footers anyway. And I keep the really straight ones for my top plate because, you can straighten them out when you do your plumb and line, but it makes your plumb and line easier if you're not using really bowed studs for your stud plating stock. Really bowed 2x4s for your top plates. Little tricks, little things that you do along the way. So anyway, that's a good way to use up crooked lumber. Or if you need small pieces, of course, you take your 16-footers and you're going to cut cripples, 19.5-inch cripples. You can burn up your crooked stuff when you cut it into small pieces. So just a little hint to get rid of. I pay attention when I'm choosing studs, depending what that stud or that 2x4 is going to do. I'm taking it and I'm eyeing it this way or this way, whatever. Is it any good? Should I use it for this? Should I use it for that? It only takes a second. So you got this pile of plate stock, and I buy number 3. Number 3 is a lot cheaper than most framing lumber is number 2 or better. Number 2, number 1 are select. I buy number 3. Some guys do it for the roof rafters. I tried it once. It wasn't any good for roof rafters, but for plate stock, it's great. It's a lot cheaper. It's got imperfections in it. It's got where's the edge of the tree, that kind of stuff. Maybe some big knots. It was not good enough to be rated number 2, but it works fine for plate stock. Saves you a lot of money if you're paying for the lumber. But even when I got guys framing for me, when some of the houses I don't do myself, I still buy number 3. They don't care. It's not more warped. It just doesn't meet the requirements, whatever those are for number 2. So that's a way to save money. I mean, I bought 200 and some 2x4 16-footers, and they were only $6 for 16-footers. if the number two or the regular stock was $2 a piece more, $3 a piece more, I say four to $600 just on this one, for example, and it's fine at all. There's none of it that needs to be thrown away. It's fine. And then here, because I have cathedral ceilings, I don't know, it's just my own personal thing. This wall is almost 13 feet tall. I doubled the 16 inch standards. I doubled the studs. It just gives it more rigidity this way. It helps. I mean, it's like 10 more studs. So that's a personal preference. I mean, you don't have to, but that's kind of a tall wall for. It's a non-load bearing wall, but it's a tall wall for a 2x4. Actually, I think if it's a load-bearing wall, if I remember right, if you go over 10 feet, I think you have to go to 2x6. You can't use 2x4 for a load-bearing wall if it's 12 foot or more, or it's 10 foot or more, something like that. Anyway, so that's why I did that. Oh, another thing, when you start putting walls together and standing them up, you got to think about your floor space. So you got to look and go, okay, which walls do I need to put up first, so that you have space to put up all your walls without having to build them in one room and carry them to another room. So like this here, this is one long wall, and it was like 25 feet long, whatever it is, right? Even though it jumps down, it was still built because I have 9-foot ceilings there, right? So in those other rooms. So I started with this wall first because it's one of my longest walls. So I looked at it and I went, okay, I need to put this wall up first, because if I put another wall up, it might be in the way. Now I can't do this one, or I have to do it in smaller pieces. So you gotta look at your layout and to decide which walls you want to put up first, so you can put them up full length and you don't have to like move them into another room, which is a real headache. And sometimes you can't, because there's a doorway. You can't carry a wall through that doorway unless it's really small. So anyway, so that's something to think about. So I did this wall first, then I think I did this wall, right, which I was able to build there and then tip up this way, and then I did this wall, which I was able to build. I had to pull it back after I got it stood up to get where the line was snapped, but I had the room and I had the height here to build it, for example. And then I did this wall next, because this wall's like it's like 20, it's almost 25 feet long. So I was able to build that one because I had all this space here, and then stand it up this way. Now I'm doing this wall, which goes from here to the front wall, so I can build that one this way. I can stand it up, and then now I can come back and put this. There's a wall that goes here, because I'll be able to build it this way and stand it up that way. So it's something to think about when to look, and you don't want to build some walls and then it's like, now how do I get this wall built, or these are in the way, or whatever. Something to think about. If you're experienced framer, again, all this information is really for people that are newer, either starting out or it's their first time. If you do it wrong and you end up, with walls in the way, you probably never, you'll be more careful next time. So, it's just something I'm bringing up now. It's something to think about that you might not think about. You start throwing walls up, and then it's like, now where can I build this wall on the floor? Now there's no room, or we got to drag it into another, we got to carry it into another room, and it's 15 feet long and it weighs, 300 pounds. So anyway, and I did use the wall jacks, because I'm by myself, so I couldn't stand up. I used the wall jacks for this long one here, this long one here, and that's it. These other ones I was able to, they're 12, 13 feet long. I was able to horse them up by myself. Anyway, and then of course, because I've got 8-foot exterior walls and 9-foot ceilings, I do like this, and now I don't worry if this doesn't meet here. It's a non-load bearing wall. But anyway, so I have to frame it in this manner, but because this situation is exactly the same anywhere a wall meets the exterior wall, and there's 4 or 5 places on that side, and I think that's 2 on this side, it's all the same because I pull my layout. When I lay out these interior walls, I always lay from the outside wall inward. So it starts here, the next one is over 16, then 16. So this one, and this one are the same on all these. So once I know those measurements, I just use them over and over again. See, that's the same thing here, right? So I got 16, 0, then 16, and 16, for example. So it's the same thing. So I just cut these the same every time it runs in. It's not like I got to calculate all this stuff. Each one is different. They're basically all the same. And then this one here is the same length. It's because it's the same situation. So this one is like, I think it's 37 3/4 short point to long point, and then this one is 92 and I don't know, whatever it is, and then this one is 96 or 98, and then this one is 101 or whatever it is. They're all the same. So I wrote the measurements down. Makes it quicker, so I don't have to recalculate every time I do this. So anyway, I think that's it. I mean, there's just a few things I thought of when I was framing. Hopefully I'll get this, should be done by tomorrow. Just a few more, two more big walls here, and then the rest are the small, like closets and that sort of stuff. So anyway, okay. Oh, nice view, huh? Back to work.